So what is satsang? It's a kind of a mysterious word. If I were to tell people, come to a satsang, they'd be scratching their heads. What are you talking about? It really doesn't make any sense. So I'll have to explain it. It actually comes from India. So it's a Sanskrit word. And the word sat means truth in Sanskrit. And sang means like sangha. You've heard the word sangha, meaning gathering. So this is a gathering in truth. I met my spiritual teacher, Swami Purna, in 2008. We did light a candle for him right behind me. It's nice to light a candle for your spiritual teacher or teachers. It's nice. It's an honoring. It's a sign of love and respect. That's why I do it. I even got some flowers for him. So it's like I've learned so much from my teacher, and now I'm sharing it with you. In 2012, he asked me to renounce the world, become a wandering monk, and travel around the United States and Canada. He asked me. He said, that's a good idea. You can do that. And I said, oh. In my mind, thinking, oh, that's unexpected. Because I didn't have any plan of doing that. I thought that's pretty radical. Really radical. You know, because I was running a successful business at the time. So certainly I had all the reason to stay in the world and just do my regular job as I'd always been. But I have a passion for the truth. I have a great passion to find what is the meaning of life. What are we doing here? What's the point? Right? I have a real strong desire to know that. And at the time that he told me, okay, now it's time to leave and set out on the road, and you could live in your van and just travel about and talk to different churches or yoga studios or whatever, I felt unqualified. Like, am I qualified to talk about spiritual things? Really had some doubt about that. But when I held my first gathering and first series of gatherings, it was clear to me that the energy was coming through. The presence was very alive, very real. I knew it immediately, the very first gathering, even though I wasn't a very good speaker. But it doesn't matter about the speaking. I mean, to people, they like good speaking, so that's nice. But for me, the crux of the spiritual teachings is the presence itself. That is the core. That's where the depths of transformation occur. That's where the power is. And what I have found over journeying to many places, not many people understand that. Why? Because there's not an awareness of what the energy feels like. So there's no context. What are you talking about? Some sort of invisible energy? Like, that didn't make any sense. Whereas for me, it was really crystal clear. And there would be some times where I would go to gatherings where there were some people who really touched in and it brought them to a deep place. And then they would come up to me and say, Brian, that was fantastic. I loved it. When's your next gathering? So the whole gamut of experiences. And so what I would encourage everyone here is to have a really strong intention that I want to feel something here. something deep. Or another way to put it is I want to transform through my connection to the energy. You know how I say this? You can say it in your mind. I want to connect as deeply as possible to the energy of this gathering. You state this in your mind. It's a prayer. And in one way, if you want to talk about like Christian terms, it would be like, I want to feel the Holy Spirit. I want to know what that is. I just don't want to read about it in the Bible or some book that this saint connected to the Holy Spirit and it took him over. And we read so many stories about that. And yet, what about our feeling? Our experience? So that is really what has encouraged me to keep going on this path, because my personal feeling of the energy has just continued to increase and expand, and very, very difficult to explain. I wish that I could just take my experience and just hand it to someone else and let them feel the same thing, and then they go, okay, now I get it. Now you don't have to say anything anymore.
So do I.
Right? That would be so good. It would be so good. Not that it's impossible, but you have to be open enough. You have to be wide open. What I would say, you have to be like space. When you're like space and you're not feeling so condensed. Maybe I could explain that a little bit more. Normal people on this earth feel very much here on earth as a human being. A spiritual person does not feel here. They are dispersed. They're feeling everywhere. They're not feeling here. Does this sound crazy?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So the eyes may be functioning, the nose is functioning, the senses are functioning, but the sense of who I am is throughout the room, is throughout the church, is spread out. It's not centered in a body. So you could say there's a sort of dissolution of the central sense of self. When that happens, you feel more like the space rather than in some small person on a planet somewhere. It's helpful for me to explain it, because then if you get what I'm saying, you can say, okay, well then if I'm not here and I'm just the space, let me see what would that feel like? And you can kind of just think about it and already go into that space just by thinking about it. Contemplation is a huge tool in spiritual growth. You use your mind to get there. Contemplation, it's like you use your mind to point to a state, and then you experience the state. Because it's said that what you focus on, what you think about on, is what you become. So if you're thinking, I'm just the space here, I'm not in this body, then when we chant the mantras and we invoke the presence, there's a deeper feeling of what's actually happening, a deeper resonance with the energy. Okay, so that's so important to understand, because if you have that context on space, then you'll get a lot more out of a gathering like this than coming in and saying, well, I'm just a person coming to hear some sort of presentation. That's very limited in one's understanding of what spirit is. So I've been contemplating on this for a long, long time. And immediately when I just think about a kind of spiritual concept like that, what I just explained to you, boom, I'm in it. I'm in it. It just slips, the consciousness just slips right into it. If someone is talking to me about joy, then boom, I'm in it. I tap in because I trained myself. If someone's talking about peace, I can click right in. If I drink ginger tea, oh boy, that makes me high. That was a joke. But true, actually. I discovered that long ago. My friends found out that I got really high. Like I felt like a really expanded state when I drink ginger for some reason. When they found that out, they would always be giving me ginger drinks. Just to like laugh. Just because I would, where am I? Very, very high. Kind of like taking, I don't know, cannabis or something. So, so that's kind of the initial lesson for how does one participate in a satsang. And actually, before I go any further, because I can introduce to you a lot of other things, I wanted, since this is a conversation where I titled it as a conversation, that I wanted to know if you had anything specific that you wanted me to either talk about or you had a question for me.
At least we know what you were drinking Sunday.
Ginger tea.
With you being at the Cosmic place where you were earlier today, it's a shame they didn't sell their chai tea, which is literally legend. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Legendary. I mean, I used to drive 20 miles to get it in the morning and take it to work with me every
Wow.
day. It was so wonderful.
That would have been good. It'd be nice to have some chai tea right now. So one time, I went with a friend to visit a friend in Santa Fe. You've ever been to Santa Fe, New Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of spiritual interest in Santa Fe.
Yes.
Kind of almost like a hippie town.
Very much so.
Yeah. So my friend took me to this hot chocolate restaurant. They just serve hot chocolate. That's all they serve. Have you been to it?
No.
Okay.
That's delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
They must have like all different kinds, right?
All kinds of hot chocolate. And I came into the restaurant with my friend, and they had the list of all the different kinds of hot chocolate, and there were a lot of them were named after Indian tribes, Native American tribes. And I looked up at the menu, and they had different sizes: small, medium, and large, and stuff. And the lady said, "Well, what would you like? What would you like to try?" I said, "No, I'll just have the Iroquois hot chocolate." She said, "The Iroquois? Are you sure that you don't want to taste test it first?" And I said, no, I'll take the Iroquois. That's kind of a warlike tribe.
Was it a warlike hot chocolate?
So my friend and I took our hot chocolate to the table, and then it's just this tiny little glass that I got. That's the small. I just said, I just need the small. So I took this tiny glass, put it to my lips, and I drank just a little bit. And the heat of that hot chocolate sent me into this state that was so blissful, was so happy, that the entire time that I was sitting with him at our little friend gathering, I was just smiling and laughing and so happy. And I said, this is the best hot chocolate I have ever had. Didn't taste that good because it was so burning and my mouth is pretty sensitive to heat. But the effect of the spice in that Iroquois drink sent my state through the roof.
What was the spice? Was it like a chili?
Something like that.
So it
Oh,
was
I
spicy
know.
hot, not temp hot. Or was it also temperature hot?
I just remember Iroquois, that's all I remember. And I just remember the state. And so foods can sometimes affect your mind and put you into a spiritual state.
Mhm.
Foods can, which is interesting. So,
How would you describe the spiritual state?
imagine the happiest state you've ever had. Let's say your daughter is graduating from high school.
Not yet, please.
Pretty soon. 12 years, 13 years.
Not yet, please. Not yet, please.
Maybe from kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah.
Do a kindergarten.
And the sort of like pride and happiness that you have, that you are a part of that. You're a part of that. Like just the like just something so special in your life, right? And just imagine like multiplying that by 100 and feeling the happiness of that state, and then on top of it feeling it expanded throughout the auditorium of the graduation. Let's say you're there at the graduation, right? And they're walking to get their diploma, and you're just expanded through everyone, through the entire room. And the bliss is just kind of almost unbearable. It's so tremendous. That would be a good description. And you really do lose your sense of center, which is a great it's a great gift. You know why? Here's a good explanation of why, because you wonder, well, why would you even want to pursue that? You can ask him. He was walking by. Why would you even want to pursue sort of this expansive feeling? Because the cause of suffering is being in a body and a mind. Because we identify and relate to this crazy mind that's running about, and we really believe that it's us. And then we look at the body, and let's say the body gets hurt, or whatever happens to the body, we also think that that's me. So we identify with that too. So the identification with the humanoid, you could call it, or the person, is the great cause of suffering. And so this is why Buddha described life as suffering, as when you're experiencing life through a human being, when you get poked, when your body gets poked, when your emotions get poked, when your thoughts get poked and you get hurt, you feel it as you, as the person. That's the cause of all the suffering. When you don't identify with this place anymore, then it's like it's happening to someone else. You were describing it, you're watching it as opposed to in it.
Yeah. Observing it.
Was Jesus like this? Would this be how Jesus?
Indeed. So I'm going to get to that topic. So, because I really wanted to talk about this. I love, you're reading my mind too. It's so wonderful. Hi.
Hi, hello.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
So, okay. When people came to see Jesus, many were attracted to the miracles. Let's just be real. Very excited. They wanted to be healed. They have been suffering from a disease for a long time. And magic happened through his connection to God. He would touch a person, he would look at them, they would touch his robe, whatever, they would be spontaneously healed. But after all the sick and the hungry and the destitute or whatever came to get their blessing and their healing, then they would all, and they, by the way, get their food as well, because Jesus and the disciples and Mary Magdalene were all there to give the food as well. And after everyone was comfortable and seated around there, then he would give a satsang, a gathering just like this, in which the purpose of it was spiritual food. So it's not enough to give the physical food. It's not enough to heal a person of their sickness that they've had for 10 or 20 years. It's now that we are settled and here, we can sit in the presence of Christ. And when you sit with him, you feel the peace wash over you. And it transforms your whole being. And you walk out and it's like, whoa, I feel like a different person. I feel so expanded. I feel so much joy, love. Like that's, he was sharing the spiritual essence of who he was. And so then, what is a Christ? A Christ is the one who has gone beyond the body. So he is the presence which is infinite and everywhere. He's not inside the body. And that's why I talked about, even at the gathering, I can't remember what was at the talk, that Christ didn't die because he's not in the body. He's the presence that holds all the bodies. And because his understanding and his realization is in that divine state, it rubbed off on people. Just being near him. The realization, the energy rubbed off on people. They started to get out of their tight bubble of I'm here and that's the rest of the world. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. And we worship beings who have gone beyond human consciousness for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. Christ particularly, and I'll tell you, here's my feeling around why specifically Christ, unique to any of the other great saints and great prophets and great Buddhas and all that, unique. And that is that he expressed a sacrifice that people say, my God, who on earth has ever done that? And knew from the very start that that's where he was heading, that that's where the body was heading at least, that it would be crucified. That kind of sacrifice, in other words, sacrificing the body in honor of the teachings that he was bringing, that he valued the spiritual teachings more than preserving his body. And therefore he walked right into the sort of the darkest part of history, one of the darkest, because, we have a choice. Well, we have a choice about what part of history we want to incarnate into. Do I want to be born in 2020? Do I want to be born in 500 BC? We have a choice about, and he could have incarnated in any other time period, but he chose a period that was so full of darkness, knowing exactly what his role was to be, to give up the body in honor of the teachings, meaning God, in honor of the Holy Father, who sends down one of his sons to spread spiritual energy to awake people out of their body consciousness and into the spiritual realms. That sacrifice, I mean, it's amazing. Like, the moment that the sacrifice happened and he was put to the cross, there was this, and then he died, right? Or his body dies. There was this sort of shock wave of love that pervaded the whole dimension, the whole three-dimensional dimension. I mean, that was part of his plan, was not just a small bit of drops of love to this particular population, but a shock wave of love through this dimension, in which everyone got imprinted with that. So my feeling is, it's interesting, they say Christ died for my sins. A lot of people believe that. My sense is that Christ died, or the body died, in order to, number one, show what sacrifice is, show what true love is, love for God, love for the teachings, and to imprint that love on every creature, on every living creature, all of earth, leaving a lasting imprint so that people have it in their blood and they can tap right back into Christ's energy. And therefore, that energy, or that Christ energy, is absolutely living in the genetics of even today, of all the humans, all the people. Living. Embedded in genetics. Now the question is how many people are awakening that? How many people are trying to activate that energy? Because it's latent. It's latent. It's not like people just snap right into Christ consciousness. You have to point your attention and mind towards that remembrance, you could say. You know, religion just means remembering. You know that's all that it means. Religion kind of gets a bad rap. Just remembering who you are. So if Christ is naturally imprinted in every one of your cells right now, then the point is put your attention towards that and try to awaken it so you feel it for real. Not just reading about it and saying, oh, that was an inspiring story and I'm glad he did that to save us from our sins and whatever, all that, the story. But feel it for yourself. And you know that one of the most helpful things you can do to feel it for yourself is stop. Stop. Stop your life. And just sit and be still. And purposely connect to the Christ energy within. Because if you spend your whole life running around, even if you're serving people, even if you're hugging people, even if you're doing all the beautiful charitable things of the world, if you don't stop and actually genuinely try to find the Christ energy, which is so subtle in your being, you may never touch it. And then what happens? You get born again into another body, and you get another chance to seek that and awaken it again. And over and over and over, we continue to take on bodies. And a lot of us forgot what we even came here for. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to find my Christ. I forgot. Some people remember. And when it really awakens powerfully in you, then you are seeking it with all your heart. You're seeking the God within with all of your heart. Everything you do, you're remembering that. All of your activities, you cannot get God out of your mind. You can't. It's always on your mind. I call it an obsession. Some people won't use the name God. Some people might call it energy, presence, love, whatever the word is. I don't want people to be fixed on, we were talking about this too, about specific words, if I use specific words. That's not the point. This essence which we're talking about, the Christ energy, there's really no name for it. It's nameless. You know, the word Yahweh, I am that I am. There's no name for it, but it is. So searching every day for that. That's how you activate it. You have to have a passion. And you know why? Because otherwise your mind takes you on a ride. And if you take that ride, instead of going back to your presence or the energy, if you keep taking the ride, you feed the mind. You feed that energy. You become, let's say if it's a frenetic energy, say you're a doer, I got a whole list of things to do. And you're constantly feeding the doing energy of your mind that's saying, I gotta do. Then that grows. And that takes you away from the God within, the Christ within, the presence, the energy within. So we were just working on this today. I said, okay, let's stop. Connect into the heart and feel the energy. Touch it. Sense it. Don't think of anything else, but open to it. And when it touches you, you'll feel the symptoms that I just spoke of. Because you're asking me, well, what does the spiritual state feel like? I explain the symptoms. You have to know what the symptoms are. Otherwise, how do you know you're even making any progress? You have to know the signs of where spirit is. Some places you can feel holiness more than others. This is a very purposeful intention in this room to invoke the holiness. Very purposeful. In a way, creating a heavenly realm here and now on earth. Some people call it like a vortex. You ever been to Sedona? Sedona, Arizona is this also very spiritual place, and many people go up to pilgrimages to go visit the vortexes. You don't have to go to Arizona right now to Sedona. It's right here. This is it. And the more you put your attention into that little spark of energy that you feel, it draws you deeper and deeper and deeper in. And you disappear more and more and more. And what's left is just presence. So you were talking again, because I love your question so much about, well, was that the state that Christ was in, of like just pure presence and really no one there? One of the reasons the answer is yes is because he even states it. And I love that quote when he's talking in the temple to the Pharisees, and he's saying, because they're really kind of like badgering him. And they're saying, well, the Pharisees were saying to him, oh, did you know Abraham? You know, and do you think you're greater than Abraham, who was our ancestor and who brought us all these great spiritual teachings and stuff? And are you greater than him? And then that's when he said, before Abraham was, I am. That answers your question right there, that one statement. He is the eternal I am that is ever present in all of existence. That's why I said, even imprinted on the very DNA is the Christ energy. He just wanted to make it really strong in this dimension so that we had more of a chance. You know? Just give us a chance, like something to touch and feel. Otherwise, you know, imagine the darkness back then. Oh, God. That was a tough world. Brutal. So, gosh, that was a long answer to the question. And please, I was also saying, don't take that, what I'm saying is the truth. It's just kind of based upon my own feeling and my own studies. And I have a different perspective, maybe, than a lot of people in regards to Christ and what religion is all about and what spirituality really is all about. So much for me is about experiential. experience, not just reading stories about saints. If they could feel it, then why can't I feel it? I mean, Christ said, you can do things like me and greater. So that's suggesting you've already got the innate ability to do what he did or to experience what he is, because it's not even what he did. It's just about being what he is. You don't have to go and put yourself on a cross and say, I did it. But the day you can say, I am, meaning I am, the planets, the stars, the universe hangs in my own mind. I am that. When you can say I am, now that is something powerful, tremendous. And when you awaken to that knowing and understanding, people who are around you will just melt. So much is there. So much power and presence is in that energy of the being who has become, in a way, cosmic. So the key is keep touching into the presence. When I found out about satsang like this, and I started to experience this energy, I made it a strong point to keep attending, because I found that doing it, being in the presence of saints, catapulted my spiritual path quickly. Like I was not a real virtuous youth. Not so virtuous, I didn't believe in God. I had a lot of issues. Depression, anger, resentment. I could hold a grudge for like a couple of weeks. I was an expert. So, boy, did it take a tremendous amount of effort to turn things around. I had to try hard. If I could do it, then anyone could do it, really. I tried so hard. And do you know who actually my original inspiration was? Jesus. Jesus, my original inspiration. Do you know what I said? When I first read about Jesus, do you know what I said? I said, I want to be like him. Done. No other statement needed. Then continue to connect to the Christ energy as much as possible. That was back in 2006. I said that to myself. I want to be like that. I want to learn what is this? Who is he? I want to find out with a passion. And I have a lot of, when I want to learn something, ever since I was a kid actually, maybe that's one of my, in a way, a kind of gift. That once I want to learn something, and I want to achieve something, everything goes in, and I learn it. That happened to me with guitar. That happened to me with running. Happened to me with soccer, piano, school too. School did really, really well in school. Just unstoppable, right? So all these, what happened in like 8th grade? They said, oh, you now qualify. You don't have to go to high school. You can go straight to college. So I took that, and I was going to college right after 8th grade, and then I decided, well, this is not for me. I can't really relate to these old students.
Did they relate to you?
They didn't even really want to talk to me because I was just so young. What did I have to say to college students? So I decided to stay in high school. That was a good decision. But the point was the intense. So then when I got connected to spirituality, all that intensity went to, I want to find the Lord. I want to be with God. I want to be with the Lord. And I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And then that's why when my teacher said, you can leave your old life behind, no problem. I want this. I want to find the truth. And then because of that, I end up here talking to James, and then James said, oh, I'd like to have you here. So that's how I got here. So maybe one of the big points of this is the intensity of, like, what inspires you to follow the spiritual path? What really excites you? And really focus on that first. What floats your boat? Is that a word? What really lights you up? What really excites you? What touches you? What moves you?
It's hard to put into words, isn't it?
Yeah. And for me, it was once I touched the presence and I got that skill, I got that sense, oh, I can feel a whole other dimension. I had no idea it existed before that. I just thought everything was just solid material world, and that was it. Once I touched it, that was my big kicker. God, this is amazing. I've just entered, what's that movie? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, how they walk through the wardrobe and into another world. That was like what happened with me. Entering another dimension of your being. I mean, it was what's the word? Undeniable. And then, of course, I want to grow that more and more and more. I want to keep expanding because I know there's like infinite possibilities to grow this energy and presence. So then I keep expanding in all these different directions and realms. That's why I learned so much from all the different saints and all the different teachers and all the different prophets and all the saints that I've met. I learned so much because I've been so open to all of them, including all the languaging too. We were talking about that too. I said I want to be open to all the languaging. However all the saints talk to me, if they talk to me about Jesus or Allah, I'm open. Let me just feel the essence of what they're talking about. Why am I going to debate about vocabulary? This is not the point. It's what's underneath it. And if you really consider, if there is only one God, and God is infinite, then God is running all the great saints and all the sages and all of us as well. Just some have happened to pop out of normal human consciousness and into a different realm. Why can't you? Right now. Not just next time. Maybe when Brian comes a year from now, maybe I'll be ready. No. Immediately. Who are you? You remember that mantra we sang the other day? Veba Levi Yeshua? Levi Yeshua. That's in my heart. The Christ. Veba Levi Yeshua. So one reason why I introduced the mantra is because we'll say this funny word, it's legit. That's what they were chanting back then, during that time. Not English, Aramaic. They had very profound Aramaic mantras that they chanted. So they would say, Veba Levi Yeshua. So you can sing it with me and try to feel into that mantra, right? In my heart, Christ. Veba Levi Yeshua. 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 And again, you can just say your intention now, or an intention like, I want to feel the presence of Christ right now. Let it be real to me. Let it come alive. And then just imagine that he's standing in the middle of the room, in the middle of our circle. Radiant, beautiful, bright, loving. His heart is shining. Just imagine that he places his palm, directing it towards you, and sending you a blessing straight into the core of your heart. Feel your heart being filled with that radiance, with the blessing. Just saying to him this mantra, or you can even say it aloud if you like. This mantra, which is invoking his energy in the sacred heart of Jesus, I trust. In the sacred heart of Jesus, I trust. Sacred heart of Jesus, imagine in his image kind of dissolving into the pure light and filling the room. So now he is as divine light filling the whole room, touching each person. Filling each person with the grace, the love, the depth of compassion. And just imagine that that light of Christ then expands to literally fill the whole church, every single office, every single room, to the very tops of the ceilings. There, the presence of Christ dwells as pure divine light. Making this church a true, holy place, sanctified by the Lord. So that anyone who walks through those doors and into this space will feel Him. So in our hearts, we just give thanks for this connection. Give thanks for the light in our own life. We are alive now to experience this.